well. Great. Now we are streaming live as well. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Digital Success Dialogue. Thanks a lot for joining us on another Friday evening. Today, we will have a wonderful discussion around banking and how it is evolving. So I'll leave up to the gentleman who has joined us. So I'll quickly introduce you to Shovik. Shovik is a business head of India at INT. He is a technology evangelist, working with leading enterprises in the domain of BFSI for the last 20 years. He's a techno geek with an interest lies in BFSI, web analytics, and e-commerce. He has been able to achieve interesting goals for the company as well as the clients that he represents, primarily driving digital success for them. So Shovik, over to you, and then we take the discussion forward.
Thank you, Zain, and welcome everybody for this Friday session for Digital Success Dialogue. We are very excited to welcome Mr. Somnath Chatterjee, who brings 2 decades of banking and financial services. He worked for more than 15 years in SME lending, retail banking, wealth management, treasury, transaction banking, as well as commercial banking. He has not only worked for ICICI Bank, Yes Bank as a senior capacity manager, he also helped in raising capital through venture capital and private equity. He has worked with a lot of startup in that sector. Presently, he's also focusing on the impact of technology as an artificial intelligence and blockchain. He has done an in-depth work in fintech space, specializing in the SME retail lending artificial intelligence. He's also a member of CII corporate finance team in the East and Finance and Tax Fund in Maharashtra. He is an MBA and pursuing a PhD in finance from IIM Ranchi. He keeps on writing research articles and regular speaker of various forums in banks and finance. And welcome, sir. Is there anything you left out in your career? I'm just wondering. It's an amazing bio to read, actually.
Thank you so much, Shovik. I think one last point left out is I'm also involved with some philanthropy. So there's a NGO called ICOM Foundation. I'm volunteer there with ICOM Foundation, where we help the underprivileged children in terms of education and health. So we are associated with some hospitals in eastern part of the country.
We really appreciate that, and I think people like you who has learned a lot in your span of career, and now is the time where you're going back to the society and helping them out, and both setting up their business and also in the philanthropy. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So I think let's jump into our session. So what I have done, I have actually jotted down some of our conversation primarily in 2 segments. The first segment we will talk about in the banking segment, and since you have been helping a lot of SME lending operations as well, so the second segment we will take up the SME lending part. Okay, so coming to the banking segment, which is actually one of the booming business and economy of India, and if you see the transformation which is happening for the last, I think for the last maybe 10 years odd, which is the transformation is huge. Okay, RBI has come up with a lot of new form of banks like your payment banks, neobanks, and small finance bank, apart from the rural, commercial, and cooperative. And if you see the new form of banks, that is payment banks, neobanks, or your small-scale, small finance banks, they are actually highly dependent on the digital ecosystem. Okay, for example, there are a lot of few of the payment banks doesn't have any branch. So just wondering, what's the future of the bank core business, that is branch banking? Is it going to be there, or is it going to be completely digitized?
Shovik, thank you for having me here, and a very nice introduction. Yeah, to answer, yes, there has been a lot of digital transformation. In fact, I would say that not only in the last 10 years, last 20 years, the way, from the brick and mortar banking, we have moved to the digital. And now I will say, not digital, I would say more of data-driven now. The word is from digital, we have moved to data-driven, AI-driven. And so that transformation have happened a lot inside the banking system, which has actually increased the productivity, increased the efficiency. A lot of inefficiency have gone out. to answer your question on the future of the bank branches, see, ultimately, customers will require the look and feel of the branch. While there will be lot will move into digital, lot will move contactless banking, but the look and feel of the branch is also important. So what we see the branches, they will be there. Probably a new avatar, probably branches area might become smaller where your operation cost reduces. Probably you will require less number of people, but also you might not require so many branches. But having said that, in the new era also, we will be requiring the branch, because branch also becomes the point of sale and is a point of contact for the customer. Particularly in India, there's a lot of emphasis on the look and feel part of it. So thereby, I would say it will be a balance, and the branches, if not so many, but will be there.
Well, when you talk about, thanks for that. When you talk about that the branch era is not going to go and is definitely a point of sales, I think I will add one interesting case studies which we were working with State Bank of India, I think a couple of years back. So they wanted to actually give an experience of a virtual banking. So definitely, a time like now where we are in the pandemic, everybody is in a home. So we were working on a pilot project where they wanted to build a virtual VR set where the user is going to wear in the home, and he will walk through the branch where he will actually feel that he's inside the branch, and he will still get all the activities done with it. So again, it was a pilot project. I am not really sure if that project has taken up or an RBI has a plan to take it up further. But yes, so from a physical branch, it went to a transformation in a virtual branch. So now coming to the point that you mentioned, that the point of sale is one of the key areas of for the branch, right? So customer acquisition is one of the biggest challenge for any business, unlike bank as well. And I think digital is helping a lot for customer acquisition, and not only customer acquisition, cross sell, selling the right product to the right customer, knowing the right customer to give him the right information. So what's your view on that regard?
So first point which you mentioned about State Bank in India about 2 years back, I would also like to say that one of the large private sector bank did try this long time back, in fact, long time back in Mumbai, in outskirts of Mumbai, and one of the actually bank branch they piloted, which was totally no employee. It was only fully driven by machines. Okay. Yeah. So one of the top last 3 banks, one of them they did that pilot, and it was in Thane or Vashi, that side of Mumbai, and no employees simply, and much before the data driven and all came. Also that was there, and but I don't think so. After that they expand that, and that just left it there. So I would not know the learnings of it per se, but yes, private sector bank did try about this employee-less or a man-less a branch concept.
I think even SDFC has also worked on something called a robot, which is in their Lower Parel branch.
Where it is in Calcutta as well. Some of the branches, the large branches, they've kept a robot. Robot basically helps you in like a "May I help you" desk. So customer walks in, the robot can actually help you in going to the next desk. So these kind of disruption will be there, but ultimately the branch will remain. See, also that the branch is also, as I said, a point of sale. It's a customer query point. The customer meets the branch. There are a lot of requirements, not only about your current account or savings account. There's a different loan requirement, which loan is suitable. Please understand, banking or bankers are regarded as highly, respectable people, because they also advise you. They're your advisors. Okay, a robot can tell me, or even a phone banking, I can get advice. But always, particularly the businesses, the SMEs, they look forward to meet the bankers to get some advice, to know what is happening around. So that piece will continue to stay. That advisory piece will continue to stay. So thereby the branches will have its own existence. But today we still say that the branch manager is the CEO of the catchment, and so that means, and I tell you, that card is very, very strong and valuable card. So the branch manager goes for a meeting and gives this card. Even the senior most person will meet in the catchment, because they bring a lot of value. They bring a lot of value with this particular profile. Coming to your question is how digitization is helping, and what we have seen is, particularly in the COVID area, we have seen on the customer acquisition. Customer acquisition earlier was, I remember I was working with a bank way back in early 2000. We had a huge team of people acquiring a product. So probably I had a sales team of some 700-800 people acquiring. Now that will today compress into hardly 20, 25, 30 because it's become digital. So I'm not saying that jobs have gone. Jobs will be there. Jobs will be in various other formats. So now your sourcing digital sourcing becomes very easy. These you are not geographically restricted. So the smaller banks or the banks who don't have that many branches, apart from the top three, others, if they are open to lending or on a liability side for particular city or catchment, digitally you can acquire a client. You can acquire the client. Now something RBI has allowed is the video KYC. So video KYC is a very good thing where you actually with the latitude, longitude, you know where is the customer location. You can customer location is tracked. The customer is scanning document on the video itself. Many banks have come out with it. There are other IT companies who have come with it. It is giving excellent results. So if I am sitting, I have only one branch in Calcutta, and I'm okay in opening account in Durgapur, Assam. So I don't need to go there. I will do the KYC over the video. I'll know customer. And the documentation is also, a lot of this documentation can be fetched digitally, can be verified digitally, the KYC part of it. So it has really helped in acquisition side of it. And more the banks have to use this digital channel to acquire a customer, where your acquisition is digitally, your documentation is digitally, and entire process become digital. Of course, after that onboarding, there's a different discussion, but it has helped a lot. Also, if I take an extension and tell you on the acquisition side, the entire sales management process for the bank has become better and better. The bank is saying the productivity has improved because all the banks, they follow a CRM process, customer relationship management, which is all your databases there, and the sales team basically keeps updating the leads. Now with this COVID time, people working from home, the entire thing came into the phone app. People were able to talk to the customer from their house. They're updating the app. Productivity has really improved a lot. Efficiency is improved. The businesses have seen a good turn. And this is what been actually said by some senior bankers also. So I think the digitization, if one is the sourcing part, has become very easy. And you will see it become more and more easy. Of course, the rural banks and all the smaller banks need to come more on board on this. And as I said, internally, the efficiency have really increased far above.
Thanks for that insight. I think a couple of intake from that. So I think before I jump into that, while I was talking with you, when you say that the branch manager is the most important person who handles a lot of things, and being a son of a banker, so my mom used to work for UCO Bank for 35 years. Okay, and I used to see her working normal in bank hours, and then people used to come at our home, maybe doing a lot of other banking privileges. I used to tell her that this is not your office. Why you are doing this? She used to say, it's not about office, it's about the relationship. And I've seen she going beyond her day-to-day work and maybe helping, maybe, I recall those days like opening an FD, you need to fill up a big form, withdrawing is a big form. So she used to do all that. And I'm talking about those era when there was no computer, there was no mobile phone. And when at the end of her career, she has to learn computer, and then she has to transform it. But again, I think that relationship was still there. But now, honestly speaking, I am banking with some of the banks. Maybe I have a relationship manager who might call me once in a month. But that relationship with the employee of a branch or that going to his house is still no more. I think we cherish that moment. That's gone. Now, coming back to digitization, I think there are a positive move and a negative move as well. So I'll give you one of my example of digitization. So one of the largest digital bank, Singapore-based bank, which I have opened an account, and for one of my visa, I need a bank statement. Okay, and that bank statement has to be as per the visa procedures, and then it has to be stamped by the bank as well. But unfortunately, this particular bank only has one account, one office branch in Park Street, and I stay in north of Kolkata, so traveling for a statement to Park Street was not as well. So I tried to call their call center. I tried to put up a mail, and believe me, I was so I think their product was not 100% covering a customer servicing what customer might need. Then the most interesting thing came up that when I wanted to discontinue my relationship with the bank, there's no way I have to do it. And the discontinuation has to be traveling to their branch. think it is also very important that when anybody, it can be an SME or a bank or a fintech, they want to adopt a digital journey. It is important that you always think of all the possibilities that what a customer might need to serve, and ensure that that all possibilities is available on the platform. So I think that links to my next question, that I think digital movement is also helping in the we discussed about daily sales, but also the service management process. A bank branch is for servicing, right? So it's just not applying for a checkbook or maybe a duplicate statement which might come to a mail. But there are a lot of other services which you physically have to do. And I think government is slowly adopting what you call digital acceptance as well. Like RBI has started with the video KYC. So I think it's evolving. So what's your view on this, Siddharth?
So, so on the customer services, so let me just put a context to your point which you mentioned about your mother's time of the UCO Bank. See, banking is a relationship business. Also, that's a very important part, right? And banking, there are two things. One is I used to tell people you are a 51% compliance and 49% relationship, because it is a very highly regulated business. At the same time, it's not a sales; it's a relationship. And
today, now the relationship is just the CRM word.
CRM word. Now relationship has become digital. That is digital. That's the relationship. Right. So also we have to appreciate that the population of the country has grown over the period. Number of banks have grown. To manage such a huge scale, it becomes very difficult for a bank manager or a relationship manager to have a very one-on-one relation like this. While there's always a scope and while always the emphasis is there, but if a branch in a branch there are 25,000 customers, I mean we have to understand the branch manager has to manage that. So so it's a mix of balance we keep doing. But having said that, it's a relationship management tool. Bankers are relationship managers, and that's there. Number two, on the coming to the service part of it, yes. So banking is about service. RBI is putting a lot of this service piece, allowing a lot of things on the digital side, allowing your bank statement. Of course, it was unfortunate that the Visa, they wanted a signed copy, a Visa office, and this bank, I know which you are referring to. They are not able to give it to you, and also closing the account. But I think this bank probably is one of the case, but things are not like that. In the service time, a lot of things have been very smoothened. And if you look at the apps of the large banks, it's commendable. I mean, the kind of service, everything. So today, if you are, as you one point you said that when your mother was leaving her job, she had to learn computer, and that happened for my father and across our earlier generation. Right. They were earlier it was a fax, and then all of them learned email and computer. And now, see, you have to try. Human beings have been transforming themselves over the period of years and years, and we have to transform into data-driven and also digital. So today, doing banking, you have to learn how to use the app, which is very simple. There's no complexity, but your entire banking is there. Entire banking. So typically the branches, I tell you, the branches service the senior citizen who are still they want to have a look and feel of the branch. The NRI customers, when they come to the country, otherwise they do it digitally, but if they're coming to the country once or twice a year, they would like to just go to the branches one. The current account of the business customers who have a lot more transaction of cash deposit, while still there's a cash dispensing machine, you don't need to come, but the rest all are moving out to the app-based services. So there's a lot of less of pressure.
So again, I'm just thinking aloud. So if I compare, so if you see banking is slowly moving to retail, okay? So you will find bank has started maybe tied up with vendors and started selling tickets. Maybe tomorrow they might start tie up with Swiggy and starts offering food as well. So bank has slowly moving to retail. But at the same time, talking about retail, so in a typical retail space, there is something called cloud kitchen. The concept of cloud kitchen is that you will actually, suppose you want to serve an entire city. So you might have 4 kitchen in the 4 corners, and this is not your kitchen. You are actually renting it on demand from some other restaurant, and you are preparing your food and delivering that food. Okay, this is quite popular in most of these app-based delivery ecosystems, right? Now, I was just wondering. So again, I'll try to take more of example from what I see and learn from my end. So my in-laws are above 60 and they have recently opened an account in one of the second largest bank in India, the private bank. And I was speaking with them saying that, okay, fine, I'm just whatever the need maybe, I was just depositing some money, and I told them that I will withdraw it on an ATM because it was a weekend and the bank was off, right? And I was surprised to hear from them that we don't have an ATM card. I said, why? So we are afraid of using an ATM card. So understood, fair. So these people are 60 above, gray haired, and their entire saving is in the bank. They might not be sure about how an ATM fraudulently might happen, or they might get ahead. So I was just thinking, so like the cloud kitchen, instead of a branch, because we know there is something called Aadhaar-based ATM or micro ATMs where people have started going there and just thumbprint. So similarly, can't a branch move some of the services which they can learn from retail industry, like cloud branches? Okay, so where they might have few of the services, not all. Maybe they might branch which is also having a kiosk in place, and they might not have a big office or table. So somebody can go there, withdraw money, or deposit cash, or maybe, for example, like suppose I call up the branch and I say that I need 10,000 rupees, and somebody brings that 10,000 rupees and give it to my home, and probably do the necessary thing. And this is maybe only for the senior citizen. I don't know, but do you see that there can be, again, this is a disruption. I'm not saying this is a digital revolution, but this is disruption to serve that segment of audience.
No, I think, Shobik, this is there in some of the places. There you can, the cash can be deposited. Earlier, the bank started cash collection was very prominent. For example, the Bara Bazaar. If we talk about this part of the country, what happens is 7:30 the cash used to come. The Posta market. It was like hugely cash intensive markets. So. So earlier it was the entire foreign banks used to dominate, and then the Indian banks started getting into it. So way back in late 90s or early 2000, it was more of the foreign banks, then the Indian banks start getting into it. And so what the bank did, and I was a part of the process. So what we see that 7:30 the cash van was sent to them, and probably 8:30 you get the entire cash coming. So cash collection process, it's a very old process. And similarly, what you are saying about the cash, sending the cash to the senior citizen, these are possible. These are not digital, but these are definitely possible. You are right that senior citizen, many of the senior citizens, even my parents, my father will be very conservative on using a debit card because he might not be sure. And you are rightly saying that in 1 or 2 in the bank account, they have their entire life savings. I mean, so they will be very wary about which is fine. We have to respect that. So that part of the segment of the society, obviously, banks are very sensitive to senior citizens. That's why I said I mentioned about the senior citizen part. And we, smaller markets. So in a bank, I was in Bardhaman branch, and I remember the senior citizen in the morning. They used to come read newspaper, spend time. It's fine. And
right.
You have to respect that. And at the same time, we used to get businesses. Those people, their son and daughters used to stay outside. So I said, you engage with them, have a relationship. Banking is about relationship. But at the same time, you make a commercial use of it, get their son and daughter's account, which will automatically come if you can.
Exactly.
If you can. So you have to be a smart banker, and you have to be a good human being. As a good human being, you empathize with the senior citizen. He's coming fine. We used to keep Bengali newspaper for them, and we used to speak. But at the same time, we used to commercially make it. So that flexibility is there. And let me tell you, RBI gives you a broad guideline that this is the guideline within which you have to work, your KYC or your operation. Rest, you can always work. And you have to just follow the KYC, know the customer is genuine. You can definitely tweak the services, and you should be. This is a relationship thing. You definitely should be. Banking is nothing but relationship job.
You're saying that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, tell me.
So you were saying that relationship cannot be a CRM, that is customer relationship management. It should be more of the hardcore relationship, knowing your customer and knowing by their name and addressing him.
So let me divide. There's a segment called corporate salary account. Okay, so there you are opening the salary account of the corporate. Now TCS, if you have TCS employees account, you don't need to handle them. They don't want to come to your branch also. They know how to handle it, right? But when you are with a senior citizen, which is obviously a different segment, you have to handle them. You have to, you have to take care of them. You should, once in a month, you should do a senior citizen day, or call them to your branch. There's a current account segment, which is business segment. So there you should be meeting them because their entire business money is getting transacted through you. So they want to see the bankers. They want to meet you. So segment-wise, your relationship strategy in a very huge scalable model, it becomes difficult for every customer to be attended. But segment wise, you have to map it.
I think there is one more challenge which I faced when when the bank was actually getting privatization and a lot of things. I think there's also a frequent plan that how frequent these people are also getting transferred from one branch to another. So that might also be a little bit of challenge to continue the relationship for much longer time, maybe. But
So yeah, so that is that is the plus side and the negative side also. So it's important that you transfer the employee once in 3 years. It's again a compliance kind of
yes,
requirement.
yes, yes.
For any even at a senior levels also, people are transferred after say 3 or 4 years because it's called mandatory staff rotation, which there's a broad guideline is there,
Right.
and which is very prudent, which is prudent at least when you are in a decision taking level. As I said, that banking here we are dealing with people's money, so so that's a auditable item. Yes, earlier in PSU banks, what used to happen, typically not the branch manager, the below staff used to be there for 10, 12, 15 years, and the relationship was there. It is not there. The private sector banks, as I said, one is the mandatory staff rotation. Plus, you have to see new people coming in. The banks are expanding. People join. Freshers are joining from campuses. They are put into the branches. They groom and they grow. So early 90s, okay, that time when the banks got privatized, there were not too many bankers. You have to understand.
Right,
so the bankers grew very fast. Now, and that time the average age of a branch manager would have been at 27, 28, 29. And today now we have a huge bunch of bankers that you might find branch manager 40, 45, 50, 50, or branch manager retiring also. That these two are different era. Now we are now we are stably we are moving as an industry.
Correct. I completely agree with you. Now, talking about the various segment of a branch operation, so they're like huge. So, and rather, I would say a bank when it operates, there are like n number of segments. So, which is the segment you feel maybe a bank who wanted to digitize and get maximum out of that investment from a given operation? Which is the segment where you see that investment?
On the fintech side?
On the banking side, I'm saying.
No, banking investment on the technology
fintech,
side.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So the maximum investment, the data says on the maximum has happened on the SME and the retail side. 73% of the investment has happened on the SME and the retail business side. Rest about 10%, I think insurance, 10% would have been AMCs, about 4% would be corporate banking. So this is the large space where the investment has happened and will keep on happening. The retail, there's too much of data, and there's a lot of scope of data-driven work which is being done or can be done in the both retail and the SME space. While when we come to SME, I'll give you more.
Yes, we'll talk more about that. Right.
But if you're talking about retail, so retail is since we'll not talk retail in that part of the discussion. So retail is individual like you and me. Okay,
right.
So there, what the banks are doing. Nowadays, see earlier, so the credit and the risk assessment is getting very squeezed. So the bank, what they're doing, you have an account with one of the banks. They'll pick an algorithm based on your transaction, based on your CIBIL score, based on your number of credits. They can pull up what is the salary credit, what is the income. They will put a predictive analysis, a regression model, and give you a pre-approved loan. Right.
So underwriting is happening digitally, right?
Digitally. It's totally data driven. So backend is the data is going on. See, the advantage with the large banks is they will see data is the new oil and data is the challenge. Now with the banks, they have huge amount of data. So they would have done that machine learning continuous and come with the algorithm. So what they are saying, I will give loan to my own customers who are there with me. New customer, I will do a credit assessment. Okay, so for the existing customer, I did not do a credit assessment because anyway he's with me, so his entire data is sitting with me only. Why do I need to go out? Okay, Acha, if you have the app with you, what happens when you install the app? You give a acceptance to access the SMSs, right? With the SMS, you can pick up the person. Entire profiling can be done. Okay, so one of the cases I remember, the company was doing so well, but we couldn't give the loan because the promoter's profile was coming that he was spending too much. So in the future, he'll not be able to service the loan. So this is the kind of predictive analysis been done. So I don't need to go to the person. What will he give me? He'll give his salary sheet and CIBIL score, and the rest I know entire thing. Where does he spend? Where does he go? What does he do? So it has impacted this entire industry. Pre-approved loan is the best thing, and it is given in your in your app or your in your internet ID login. You can straight away go there. You don't need to go to the branch. You can click it. The person will come to you.
Pre-approved, right? Yeah.
It made life very simple.
I recall a very interesting discussion which I was having with one of the largest bank of China. So China has a market who has the highest amount of loan get processed. So the highest amount of loan is every 3 seconds one loan get processed. Okay.
Sorry?
Every 3 seconds one loan is getting processed. Every 3 seconds a loan is getting processed. So I was having a word with one of the in last year Singapore FinTech. I was there. I was having a discussion with one of the guy over there, and interestingly, what we have found out that along with so China also the data is huge and they also have face detection and other stuff. And apart from that, they've also introduced something called social index. And this I will actually not only see the guy's SMS, the civil, the score, credit score. I will also see that what activity this guy is doing. So I was reading one article one day. There's a girl it's a very small girl who built an application. So that application, what this application does is that once you build it, install that application on your phone, this application is going to see where are you going. Okay, so which are you going to a temple or are you going to a bar? Okay, or so are you going to in the weekends? Are you going to a friend's place or you're going to movie theater or maybe spending, right? And it was also reading the SMSs. He was also doing a social indexing that, okay, who are your friend? Is your friend? What is the social index of your friend? What is the credit index of your friend? And that way it was creating an index of this person so that somebody who has zero financial background or maybe not eligible for a loan, maybe somebody is not doing any job or might not have a bank account, is also eligible for some kind of microfinance or loan which they can pick up and take forward. That's a very interesting, and I hope it will soon come to India as well once RBI and other bodies will give some nod into it. Yes, there are Indian companies who are building, companies like us who are building this kind of solution, and this is widely accepted there. Anyways, that sounds very interesting. So I think we just talk about a term called fintech, right? So that's a very interesting market again. And India is the second largest fintech in the world at this stage. It has more than 2,500 companies. And this has increased. I'll tell you the number in 2014 was 737, and now it's more than 2,500. So it's the second largest world. So just curious, what do you feel? What will be the role of a bank and a fintech, and who will dominate in the future?
So fintech, the bank and the fintech will complement each other. Nobody will dominate. It will complement. So the banks will require the fintech big time for all this. You see, all this algorithm, all this kind of machine learning tools. The bank will depend on the fintech. They bring this expertise. Bank don't want to get into that expertise, and fintech will require the bank because ultimately that end user will be the banks. Of course, there are NBFCs and others also, insurance companies. There also a lot of users there. So in fact, there was a poll done where maximum number of respondents, senior bankers also said that they will complement each other. Nobody will dominate or anything. See, in India, the number of banks will grow. It will become more. And with that, the fintech space will also start getting more players. You are saying 2,500. I won't be surprised if we get more numbers. Of course, there will be some smaller players who are not meaningful. They might move out. It happens in the industry. There are mergers, there are consolidation. Those things will keep happening. But I think the space will have a requirement of has more appetite, and more players will come. But on a not a nutshell thing, both will complement each other, and that will become the best of the models.
And I think while we are moving to digitization and the fintechs and this new, as I was telling you, payment banks and new banks, I think it is also important for the end user like us, who is maybe somebody who is not part of the IT ecosystem. It also need to be mature enough. I'll give an incident for today. So while I was reading an article today morning, Paytm has been removed from Google Play Store. It happened today. And the reason is not anything related to its business practice. The reason is the app has a link to a site which is Paytm Games, which might have some gambling content into it. I have not reviewed or anything. So the reason is logical as per the Google's policy. Okay. At the same time, Paytm is one of the largest NBFC who also has a Paytm as a bank, which is a payment bank, and it has triggered a panic. So Paytm has to actually put up an official statement saying that your money is safe. It's exactly what Paytm is saying, and we'll be back soon. So the Paytm is working, the service is running, everything is happening, but it panicked. And similarly, it happened when Yes Bank has a turmoil and PhonePe was suddenly stopped working. The merchant started panicking that what happened to our money, will I get that money? But they have to understand PhonePe was just using the UPI gateway of Yes Bank. They might have a different bank account altogether for the processing. I think that basics of what you call knowledge, information, it has to be more transparent enough to understand people. And at the same time, while we're talking about devolution and digital, and you must be aware of the UPI fraudulence which is happening. It's happening huge time. So there are a lot of people who takes the advantage of limitations of people knowledge, and they try to take the gaps of that knowledge and try to. But I think we are growing very fast. The future is bright, and we will take it forward from there. Anyways, I think what we will, you want to say something?
Also, just to tell you, Shobik, I think you will see a lot of investment will come into this sector. In the fintech sector, see, last 6 months, the investors have been slow. Obviously, with the pandemic, people not sure, but I think you will start seeing a lot of new investment happening in the fintech space, and the future is bright, as you rightly said.
Right. So I think now let us slightly shift our discussion into SME lending. So I believe you have been doing a lot on that. So before, I think there are a lot of people who are here, but before we start, we have to understand a quick introduction. What do we define by SME lending? What is a segment? So we call it define as an SME. What amount of loan is called an SME, not maybe a corporate loan?
So there's no, definition. Banks will define it. Of course, government has put a different definition for the SME turnover segment. But I think what the banks do is, India is largely SME-driven country. Okay, so banks have verticalized into SME into various business, small business loan, medium enterprises, small enterprises group, self-employed group, various kinds. And these are typically the business loans, which can start from 50,000 and 1 lakh, and it can go up to about 10, 15, 20, 25 crore. This is like a typical the ticket size we have seen. And obviously above then is the large SMEs. And because below 50,000 will typically become a microfinance, which goes to individual. So from 50,000 to say about a 2 lakh will be MSME loan, micro loan will be there, and above that will be SME. So it can go up to 20, 25 crore. But the sweet spot is basically about that 25 lakh to 50 or 1 crore. That is the main where you give a lot of unsecured. See, once you cross a crore of ticket size, then you start taking collateral, you start taking asset, and which at times become challenges. So in terms of purely on the financial basis, you want to give an unsecured loan, I think about between 25, 50, 75 lakhs is the sweet spot where the banks will operate. Above that, taking a call will be difficult.
So what are the key challenges apart from identifying the sweet spot, what banks are facing at this? And when I say banks, probably if you can also put some light on NBFCs, because I understand a lot of NBFCs are also working on this particular spot where they wanted to process a loan, which is maybe 1 crore to 5 crore or 10 crores, right?
So, Shobik, yes, with the SMEs, the challenge is while it's a very profitable segment because the business segment returns are good, the problem is that most of the SMEs will not have a proper documentation. The accountings are probably not as maintained as the banker would expect to do. They will not have collateral, they will not have assets to back the loan. These are the challenges which we used to face. So, because banks, NBFCs are still lenient in terms of documentation, but banks are highly governed and audited. So thereby, most of the times, the challenges is basically in terms of documentation and accounting policies. See, we'll know the business is doing very well, but somehow some of the accounting principles are not very clear. Money is not fully there in the system. There are withdrawals are there. While the business efficiency will be working at a 20-25% margin, but the accounting shows a 5-7% margin. So we have a thumping view on the business, but the data is not showing that. And bankers will work according to the financials, nothing else. And clearly we have to do. So that's a challenge. Also about the the knowledge of the SMEs, that, you have to keep giving your stock statement every month. You have to keep giving you, that's of course the relationship manager's job, but the knowledge in terms of the banking also very limited in terms of the smaller SMEs at least. Larger one, of course, they have a financial part. Of the smaller SMEs, what happens is the accounts person is there, and typically the owner or the promoter, he only does the banking part of it. So there it becomes the challenge. The knowledge also becomes the challenge.
I think before I jump into a contextual question from you, I think this is for our viewers who are directly with our in Zoom or in Facebook Live. We will also take some questions from you at the end of the session. So in case you would like to ask some question, please feel free to put it on the chat box, and we will take this up once we completed some level of discussion, and we'll have that question round as well. So basically what you're suggesting is a big typical problem is more of an infrastructure problem with SMEs having. And I think India as a country, which is more of an SME-led, there will be this challenge. So what is your suggestion, not from a lending perspective, but today, suppose I'm starting a business and probably in 4-year line down the line, I feel that, okay, my business is growing, I might get more orders, but I don't have the capital in place, I might take a loan. So if I want to run this business for next 3 years, 4 years, 6 months, what are the basic infrastructure I should have? I'm sure some of the guys who are here are entrepreneurs, want to like to get that answer.
So first thing, I think, if you see, capital is the source for the growth, that is known, definitely. So if you need to look for a bank finance over the period of time, I think first is you have to keep a clean accounting books. That's the first thing the bankers will look at. So accounting books should be very clear. You should have at least key people working with you, because the bankers will look at the kind of people who are working with you. Thirdly, your business model. Your business model should be very transparent and should be a scalable model, which will, the product, I mean, with the disruption, it should not fade away. So these are the three points I should mention. But I think the first point is that if you're looking to raise after 2-3 years, first thing you should start looking at about your keeping your records properly. All your books of accounts should be proper.
Yeah, I think I want to like to add over here. So just for our SME friends, there are a lot of basic tools that are available in the market, cloud-based tools, online tools, mobile apps, which helps you a lot to do your day-to-day transaction. And you can do basics. You do not need to have a very high accounting knowledge on that to operate those tools. And the good thing about this tool is that whenever you want a proper statement at the end of the year, end of the month, it gives you properly. And I think this is what exactly any bank or any news is going to see first, right? And rest, like what Mr. Chatterjee was saying about the business transparency, about the key people, this has to be there for any business, right? Any business will grow for that only, right? But I think Mr. Chatterjee just highlighted a very, very critical point. We understand the business is doing 25% profit, but just because you are not keeping the right books in place, right records in place, the data is coming 5%, and bank will only see that data. The bank will never understand anything which any payment you have received in cash and is not entered in the books will never get identified by the bank. So it's important that we keep the basic books ready so that we are ready for to grow our business with such support. Moving further, so I think you just mentioned that risk assessment and underwriting is one of the another big challenge in a lending business as well. So which we are talking, and it can be any kind of lending business. Now, when an SME comes to you and who might have a limited amount of documentations, well, the documentation can be hand-holded. But how, if I don't have enough records with me, how do I do a digital evaluation of that person and offer him a loan?
So I think, see, the good part is the AI-driven thing has actually helped in this. So if there's an SME is there, and I have a data of only last 2 or 3 years for the company, and also not enough data available, even if it's there in the business for last 7-8 years, the data is not enough. What we do is now in the AI-driven, there are two things. One is the financial data points. Another is called the alternate data points. For the people who are not from this side, there's an alternate data point. So alternate data points can be anything. right? So if earlier when the SME used to come to the bank, we used to check his financials, his collateral, the promoter's background, promoter's guarantee, collateral, and the normal stuff, with the basic stuff. Now what we'll do, we'll put say probably another 50, 100, 150, 200 alternate data points. Now our scoring becomes more robust. So like the point you were saying about social media. So there can be social media data which will come. Of course, the SMSs normally it is that the SMS only the 5-digit I think number they are tracked. No, not the personal SMSs are not tracked. They are not supposed to be tracked. So if you have access to my phone SMS through an app, you don't have the access to my personal SMSs. Only the which is coming with a 5-digit promotional. So that is only tracked. So what I'm saying is you can know a lot of things about me, about the promoter, about the businesses, and then you put in the predictive model, and your predictability is much better now that whether the person will default or not. Hmm. So earlier it was only based on financial data, which is now completely moved into predictive analysis, which can, there's a software, it's an Israeli software where it's a voice data. I mean, we have seen when call center, we speak a call center, they say that this call will be recorded for monitoring and training purpose. But there's also like a lie detector. There's a software which actually will ask you 5 questions and know whether. So this for the audience, I'm saying that they will predict whether the person can default or not. And this is again a AI driven. So like this, there are so many alternate data points have come. So earlier, if I had 9 or 10 financial points, now I will have another 100 alternate data point, which is valid, important, and it makes more robust. Thereby, the lending has become much easier. So for the current account also, there's a lot of pre-approved products are coming similarly. So there's the algorithm is there in the backend, where algorithm for salary account for an employee like person, it will be his salary, credit, his CIBIL score. For a current account, again, different transaction will be put. The bank will have its own financial parameters. How much is the debit and how much is the credit? Is there any check returns or not? What is the average balance the company has been maintaining? And then they put alternate data points, which is taken the help of a fintech. The bank will have its financial data point. The fintech will give the alternate data points, and then together you put the regression analysis, and you can give a pre-approved lending, which has become now much easier. So for your existing customers, they don't need to come to you. Before that, only you can say, okay, see, you have a business with me. Only thing the bank said that if you are banking with me, let me be your primary banker. Route everything to me so that I can help you with the financial. That's the point. So the risk and assessment has totally been squeezed into the AI-driven part of it, which is much better now.
I think I will share one more example, which again from what we have been doing as a company, right? So we are building a solution for one of the leading bank in India. So what they wanted, so they're saying that, see, whenever somebody forfeits, it's not an SME, it can be anybody. Somebody forfeits, say, I have a home loan, I have a car loan, I have a PL, okay, and a card maybe. So probably I have now with this pandemic, I lost my job, and the bank has marked me as a NPA, saying that this person has failed maybe straight card payment. But however, he's still paying his other loans, okay? But as a bank, what I also understand is that if somebody has failed one of his liability, then immediately that person goes into that bucket. And what we are trying to build over there is we are trying to build a AI-driven ecosystem for the customer. So, why I was asking the bank that why you wanted to identify a person who has maybe failed on one of your products. He said, yes, it's correct, but if he failed today with one of the products, it is it's a warning bell for us that tomorrow it will fail for the other products as well, right? So rather, instead of he firefights to what payment you want to do, rather I want to build a solution with an AI tool into it, my current product line, to tell him that what should he do in this crisis. So for example, his total outstanding, maybe total liability to the bank, maybe say 50,000 a month, right? And which includes his credit card bills, his car loan, its this loan, everything. So the bank says, okay, fine. First, you tell me how much you can pay. He says, the guy says, I can only pay 15,000. So bank, what it will do, it will give him the solution. For example, okay, so you have a credit card. Let me convert that card into a PL, outstanding of a card into PL. That means you immediately save from that 40% interest to maybe 12%, right? So, and then probably your EMI will be much lesser, and you might take an extension of say 3 years or whatever, right? and probably I will also match some of your loan and I might help you in restructuring your loan so that definitely I'll charge you something for that, but I will restructure it so that you can commit that 15,000, right? And this entire ecosystem is being generated from an AI in background, which is actually reading the customer data, understanding the different product of the bank, and offering the best solution. I'm sure earlier it was also done, but it was done in a intervention of a human being, and with some people is to come. So, so this is something which I find is a very relative example, which might become, and so I share that. So this is coming actually. Coming back to the
One point I had in this that I don't know offline that if the person had missed his payment during the last 6 months, there was a moratorium, and they couldn't have marked it as an NPA. Of course, what was happening in CIBIL, if you are missing something, it gets reported to the CIBIL. But this time they are not marking it as an NPA, and I don't think the ratings are getting affected. So, but yes,
no. So this solution is not for this pandemic period, but the solution is overall. The objective is to help the customer to take the right decision. So instead of he start taking the bank's calls when you're a defaulter, you try to run away from the bank, right? So instead of doing that, the bank is helping you out and helping and if you are restructuring your loan, that means you are not a defaulter, right? You're restructured. There's a problem you face. You have restructured your loan. Maybe earlier it might have been a loan free by 2 years time. Now it might be 5 years time.
So there's a word called rescheduling. Right? So there's a word, it's called rescheduling. So I reschedule my payments. With restructuring, I reschedule. So if my payments are for last 2 years, I can reschedule it for make it for 5 years. So that's not a default. That's I have an intention, good intention to pay back.
Exactly. So then this is what bank is trying to do with digital adaptation. Okay. So I think now let's think of other side of the table, the guys who are sitting in the bank or the bankers or the fintech companies. I think one of the biggest challenges NPA, and since we work with a lot of insurance companies also, so we build a lot of models where they say that I want to identify when a person will default his premium, or maybe what is the identification of when I want to pay my claims, what is the probability of somebody doing a claim, right? So then depending on that probability, I charge the premium. So similarly, does the bank also started a model where they want to identify what is the chance of a guy getting default and how that model operates?
Okay, so it's a very, very valid point. A lot of work has been done on this. In fact, I'm also a part of in this doing this work. There are 3 things in the loan. One is the sourcing of the customer digitally. Number 2 is the risk and assess credit part of it, where you assess the customer and you disburse the loan. And third is the portfolio monitoring, which we are talking about now, the NPA piece. So fintech, what does the fintech does? Fintech is the enablement. Ultimately, loan is given by the bank. Fintech enables the bank with this data. The portfolio management. So what is happening? And there's something called early warning signals, with the AI driven and machine learning. So when I'm doing a risk management of the particular customer, then I'm running the portfolio, say at a 15 days level. In fact, now we are looking at, can it be done on a daily basis, where the portfolio will throw you that early warning signal that this person can default in the next 7 or 10 days or 15 days. That is the kind of work is happening now. So the NPA side will, of course, the moratorium and the pandemic is an aberration. We will not take this into account. But this predictive analysis has been done. For example, you are in a steel business and loan has been given. My analytics will pull out that there's a problem in the steel industry and there is a chance of default. You are in one of the cities where there's a lockdown for 15 days for some other reason, not this. The analytics will pick up. You are in a trade which is going to get affected. It will pick up. So the portfolio churning is done regularly. And early warning signal, EWS is a very new mechanism which has been introduced to the banks. Again, the work has been done by the fintech, where people, at least they are getting the data bank. Because earlier, what was used to happen when a customer used to miss a payment, a EMI or an interest payment or whatever, both on the retail side and on the SME side. Post facto, the collection team used to start calling them. So you have missed your EMI, and then you start following the customer. Now we are saying we have moved into the proactive, from a reactive scenario. We are moving into proactive scenario.
Right.
So there we know that there's a data coming. Okay, see, I'm making a call and the person is my software says the person is in Rajasthan, but he's saying no, I'm in Mumbai. So there's something wrong in this. He's trying to hide data. I'm just giving you some examples, right? So so there's a trigger which is given to the bank, and the bank with the trigger, bank will start calling and getting in touch with the customer, get some time to react it. So that's the a kind of work which is happening on the portfolio management, and thereby I think it will help it. Number two is on the NPA side, RBI has told the banks clearly that entire NPA has to be now put into the digital platform. Okay, not the AI, I'm talking the digital, because what happens is NPA were managed also. A lot of these things are had been managed the way. Now RBI saying you create a proper software by next year, it should be there by March, April, May, the software should be there. Entire NPA has to be digitally recorded and managed through that. So a lot of transparency will come in the system also on that context. It just happened this week only.
I think this is the reason where we are getting this requirement that we should have a digital platform in place which will allow the not only record the NPA but also help the customer to learn and earn and then act accordingly. He should able to figure it out. I think that really helps actually from a bankers and a fintech perspective. I'll come back to a little bit of my SME friends who are there in this particular webinar. Just try to understand. Well, we discussed about that we need to basic accounting in place, the software has to be in place, you should have a transparent business. But at the same time, data is a new oil, which we discussed, right? So just want to understand that, well, probably for an SME, it is not critical. They might not able to understand that what is the importance of a data and how this data will able to fetch me a future credibility in the market for a larger, maybe it can be a chunk of business or making the right decision in the business, or it can be even taking a financial support to run and expand the business. So what's your take on this?
So this is the data you're talking for the SME companies, not the bank. We are talking about the SMEs.
Right.
So I think, when I speak to my colleagues or friends in SME business, the one thing I tell them that you have to now move into the digital side of it. Otherwise, you will not exist. And also the lending becomes difficult. So when you ask me about if they need to get ready for bankers loan, getting a lending, I think first 3 points I mentioned, but the fourth point also I mentioned is the digital part of it. If your business is not digital enabled, you will be faded away and your getting of expansion will get limited. So much of discussion. So my request to all my SME friends are that the way you handle your finances, start putting a lot of work on the digital. You don't need to hire a senior digital person. You need not put on your OPEX hiring a person who's comes with a huge cost. Take advantage of consultant. There are so many good companies like yours who are expert people, and they will give advice. But see, they will come with a lot of data. So if you hire people, they will come with data. They will transform your business on the digital side of it. So every business, even a small kirana shop, will go through the digital disruption. And my suggestion to all the SME friends is they should start looking their business, how the business to be put into a digital platform. Having said that, not to get into too much of operating cost, start hiring expensive people. As I said, hire consultant, hire people who will come as a freelancer, who will advise, speak to people, take advice from experts, and then take on a franchisee basis rather than putting a cost. I understand smaller businesses where my returns are not high. I'm in a small business, so I can't hire a person. But that's why the models are there, which are freelancing models.
I think I'll just take one point from here. So you said the small kirana shop is something which is going to, and then believe me, we really like of those tools which have been come up in the market, where like I think Khata Book or similar application which is helping those kiranas, like amazing. And I'm telling you, so with this definitely digitization is something which is now a necessity, and with the help of this particular current scenario, people has understood the hard way. So I was talking with one of the largest, I think probably the world's largest association of retailers and traders body. And they wanted to come up with something like they wanted to compete with the who's who of the e-commerce domain, and they wanted an entire digital transformation happening for the smallest store as well. And I was trying to understand why. They said that in this pandemic, the bricks and mortar stores have dropped their sale by 60%, while the online stores has actually multiplied by 16%. Which has given a clear indication that the digital movement is a new future, and it cannot be bypassed. Either it can be in a banking business or retail business or in a transformation, whatever you want to do. It has to be. It's a new basics. And we have seen it in education as well. We have seen it in our day-to-day. Even the way we are doing this webinar, we are doing communications happening remotely.
You will find too much of disruption in the healthcare sector. See, I work closely on the healthcare sector on the AI piece. The way healthcare will be next 2-3 years will be quite different from what it was there earlier. Huge change is going to come.
And since industrial technology works with a lot of pharma and healthcare domain, so believe me, the two segment, although it's not relevant, but I just want to add to the two segment where we see the huge amount of growth at this point of time is healthcare. Number two is BFSI. And rest is the retail and other things. And pharma and healthcare is like adopting it like anything. It's like anything. Although we feel that this is the new future and new thing. So I think I would like to thank you, Mr. Chatterjee, for your lovely time. And let's see if we have some questions from the audience which we can address and take it forward. So just
awesome. Well, thanks, Mr. Chatterjee. I think it was really great to hear. So I'll quickly read out the questions and then you can put the cross. Ankit, who's asked you about, as you told these old days, if I have one branch in Kolkata, then also we can have customers from outside Calcutta. But in future, banks will reduce their branches. What about the job losses?
No, I think that's what, while discussing with Shobik, one point I mentioned that while requirement of team has gone down, it's not job losses. You have to, every one of us, each one of us today have to transform our skill set. Please understand, from the last mile person to the CEO, each one of us have to transform ourselves to the new world, which is the digital world, which is the AI-driven world. If we don't transform, you can be the best of the performer, we'll be faded away. So believe you me, there's no job losses. There's nothing. There's no job losses. If the number of people requirement has gone down, the businesses have actually gone up. So people are deployed in various other businesses. So each one of us have to clearly focus on our own skill set, increasing our skill set, and keep ourselves relevant in the new world.
Awesome. Then we come to the second question, which the team has raised out. I think it's someone from the Thagata. Let's read it out. So he says, when you're talking about going digital, we have seen how there are various anonymous charges levied by some banks. I would avoid naming anyone. The banks hit the technology to get their monies off the back. How do you think drawback like these can be avoided? And how do you think can be a great way for people to be convinced about to go digital and put this trust in the system?
So if there's a grievance you have, or you have a conflict on the bank charges being divided, is you can always put a mail. If once you put a mail from your registered email ID to the customer care of that particular bank, you immediately get a revert. All banks do that with a request number, and they will come back to you with the reasoning. You can always keep write back and forth. That's number one. Number two, you can of course approach the branch if you want, but the best way is not approaching the branch. Is basically you write a mail or you speak to the call center. That's much more efficient way where you could sit in your office in your desktop and you can speak to them. And obviously, of course, if you are not convinced, you have an option to go to RBI Ombudsman. But it is wrong by saying that the banks deduct wrong charges, and for the technology is a wrong thing. Charges earlier also grievances were there. Today also grievances are there. So it's just that it's a relationship. Banking is about relationship, right? So in relationships, there will be fight and there will be good times and bad times. So just keep writing to them. They will be happy to help you. The call centers are really good, and they definitely will look at it.
Awesome.
And I agree with Mr. Chatterjee, because there are, I think, I recall there was a time when banks used to do a lot of charges which you didn't have a clarification about. I think in recent times it has improved a lot. And in case you see there is some wrong charges, and I'm telling you from my experience, if you connect to the right guy, so most of the bank has what you call a relationship manager as well. You can connect with the relationship manager and explain him or her the problem. And with my experience, I can say 90% of the cases it's been explained or reversed. They are not like a telco company that you switch on one button and then the ringtone got added and you will charge 90 rupees a month. So bank cannot do that kind of business.
I will add to what Shobik said is, my experience is that rather randomly going and talking to a branch person. Of course, relationship manager is definitely your point of contact. See, the call center executive, most of the places, they have a power to reverse. They have a certain power. Many a times I've seen that on a relationship call, since you have called them and if you are a good customer, that then and there they reverse the amount up to a certain amount based on their own
Yeah,
DSO.
in most of the credit card cases, we have seen that, right? Whenever there's long
Absolutely.
charge in credit card,
Absolutely.
the call center executive has a full right to reverse it and process it. Right?
So the processes are there. There's a lot of trust in the system. There's there. You can always write. There's a lot of transparency in there. It's not that banks will keep charging and make money.
And I think, Mr. Chatterjee, what it also does is over there is that they also see the what you call the background profile, your history with the branch, how you have been doing the business. So this is also something which is seen before they adopt any kind of changes on the request.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a relationship. Ultimately, as I said, it's a relationship call. So it's a net relationship. See, if I'm making 100 rupees from you in a year, I mean, I'll be happy to waive a 5, 10, 15 rupees as a gesture. Okay. But if I make 100 rupees from you and you ask me to waive 5,000, I mean, we're also here in commercial, right? There's a salary payment, bank, so we cannot do that. That's the balance.
Awesome. So I think we really had an interesting discussion. There are a couple more questions, but they lie in the same domain that I've already answered, trying to talk about the future and giving examples. So I'll leave that. So I also have with me Abhishek, who just wanted to say hi to you. So over to him.
Hi, Shobhata. I'm calling you Da, like my elder brother. So
Absolutely.
I don't mind. Thank you so much for coming on board and,
pleasure.
Joining our audience with your insights and knowledge, because, we make software, but we will never have the kind of knowledge you have about the industry. Being in this industry at the ground level for so many years. So we really, really appreciate the insights and knowledge that you have shared with us and our clients and our team, as well as people who follow IndusNet very, very closely nowadays. And I think they all will be enriched with some takeaways which they can use somewhere.
Thank you. And Abhishek, you guys are doing a great job in IndusNet in this space. Obviously, you are doing a great job. And you are helping the banks. You are complementing the industry, not only the industry to grow in this domain. So as I said, it has to be together. Nothing. It's a collaboration. It cannot be an isolated world.
Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Thank you for having me here.
Okay, thank you, Somnath.
Thank you, Mr. Chatterjee. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And just wanted to re-emphasize about his contribution to the industry. So, Mr. Somnath Chatterjee. Thanks a lot. I hope everyone had a good evening, Friday evening. Thanks a lot, Somnath, again for joining us. Have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you, Zain, for conducting. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.